Hello, welcome back to the Western Front of the Soviet Union. Today we're going to be turning the turn, finally. Skip the intro videos and we'll load up our save. Now, I do want to talk, while we're watching our men get slaughtered, I want to talk a little bit about why I chose to play the Soviets versus the Nazis. And kind of what I think about wargaming in general. So this is going to be more of a relaxed session of watching our men get murdered and trying to think of other things. I did mention last time that we had made the kind of doctrinal decision that we're going to be targeting to have one corps level artillery per division in a corps. And an addendum to that is we're going to try to have 2 anti-tank units, battalions, once we're able to, at that same level. So 2 per corps. So now, without further ado, we end our turn. So let me talk a little bit about why I chose to play the Soviets in this grand campaign. It's a big undertaking playing a game like this, and even more so making videos about it. It's not something that a lot of people will find enjoyable, I'll admit. The map is huge. The game itself is huge. There's a lot of details that you have to learn and that you're constantly really learning. You might get to the point after like 3,000 or 4,000 hours where you know every little tiny rule. But I don't think that's really how the game is meant to be played. In my opinion, the game is meant to be played with a lot of unknowns. And that actually makes it more fun. The less you know, the better in some cases. Because it gives you the historical perspective. And the reason that I want to play the Soviets is because I really don't know, from the Soviet perspective, all the nitty-gritty details of the war. Especially like 41 to 42. What were their actual plans? Like, how could they have won in small areas, and how did they resist effectively to the point where they at least held Moscow and slowed them down in the south? These are really interesting questions that a lot of histories don't look at, and part of that is because of the way that Soviet history has been recorded, kind of through the lens of, well, the embarrassing stuff has to be swept under the rug because these generals that commanded in World War II were now politicians post-war. And so a lot of the embarrassingly stupid decisions were kind of covered up. But unfortunately, they just had such a culture of secrecy towards the West in general that a lot of the good stuff was covered up too. A lot of the learning lessons for Western countries were covered up because they would have had operational use in the Cold War. And so it wasn't until the fall of the Soviet Union where some of these details started to come out in their entirety. But even now, between what's been lost to history and what's still covered up, there's just not the same level of detail that you could get about even Nazi divisions. Now, that's not to say that there's not great Russian language unit histories and even a few survey level histories, but the vast majority of Soviets' history is very divided. It's very personal level, a lot of memoirs and letters. And then you have the operational stuff from the army, from the Air Force and all of that, but a lot of that is very hard to access unless you speak Russian and can travel to Russia and physically see the archives. And I imagine that post-Ukraine, there's not a lot of Westerners who are doing that anymore. So I'd imagine the volume of literature that comes out about the Soviet Union in World War II dwindles to an even lesser level than it is already. I mean, there's already almost nothing, and the longer things are kept hidden, the more people will have died, the less primary sources will survive, the more documents will degrade physically, and there'll just come a point where there's just so much history that's lost because nobody was allowed to write about it. And it is really sad to me, but one of the great things about this game is you can almost recreate history. And Grigsby and company did an incredible job of research about these unit histories and about the level of detail that you would need to simulate the whole war. And it's really an incredible achievement from a historical perspective. And so getting the chance to play it from the Soviet point of view is more of a history learning lesson than it is a gameplay, this will be the fun side to play. Because I don't necessarily think that the Soviets are the fun side to play. I think that the Nazis are the more fun side to play because you get to win. I mean, it's great. You get to smash through, 250,000 men every turn. Now, the other thing I want to talk about while this is running, we're just kind of seeing that our pockets are getting cleaned up here. But the other thing I want to talk about is, in general, in war games, most people like to play the losing side if they're more experienced because it offers more interesting lessons. But that's difficult to choose, which is the true losing side on the Eastern Front, or Western Front as we're calling it from our perspective. And in World War II, both sides had periods of huge victories and periods of huge defeats. Now, ultimately, the Soviets win. But I don't know if you can call them the victors in every case because they have years of defeat, years of crushing defeats. Even on the offensive, they have these just horrible, crushing defeats that to most countries would be completely demoralizing. But the Soviets just kept on trucking. So that's really unfortunate to see. Those divisions got completely broken, and they're now routed. So we're going to need to bring in just completely fresh units into this area. But just look at how far they got. They didn't get as far as we were worried about. And now we're seeing a black screen. Always a good sign. The turns, they can chug along, and I do not have the best computer in the world, so they probably would run faster on a faster computer. But that's kind of how it is. Oh, man, I'm very surprised that they did not go further east. So leaving that pocket there, or leaving that gap, was not devastating, which is great. And I don't even mind that they went towards the west over there. That's great. They weren't able to go right through to Pskov, which is what I was trying to stop. Because, if they got to there, they could set up a better distribution network for the logistics. Now they're in that nasty in-between period, where Riga's kind of far away at this point. And they're going to have to bring up supplies on, mediocre rail that hasn't even fully been captured or let alone fully repaired. So that's going to delay them by a week or two, possibly. And just holding out there was really valuable. This is a little concerning. This is kind of what I thought would happen down here. Just get pushed back. Hopefully get pushed back in the correct direction. That's the key. I don't mind that we get pushed back. And I don't even really care if we get encircled. But what we don't want is to get pushed back and just destroyed instantly. So, I mean, some of this stuff is basically what we were planning for. This is great in some ways. Ooh, so strong. So strong. All right, here's the real. Oh, we held. Held again. Another. Hate to see it. They held out good, though. Jesus Christ. Just kind of smashed right through us there. Held. Held. We are, we're fighting. If nothing else. But now those panzer divisions have fully wrecked us. Oh well. What can you do? Well, I gotta say that that actually went better than I expected in some ways. In terms of the time it's going to take them now to get their war machine really rolling, I think we did cause a bit of a delay, which is great. And that was our entire objective, is just to delay. And we're going to have to move more stuff down there to get in front of those panzers. But ultimately, I think we succeeded in most of our objectives for this turn. And if you look at the divisions that did hold out, it's the divisions that were on the best terrain. So even though these guys got knocked back, they were kind of the sacrificial lambs, unfortunately. I mean, we just had to stack them up wherever we could. That was crappy terrain. Now we have a bit of a river line to work with. Maybe we can throw up a stronger defense here. But maybe not. I mean, ultimately, our strongest defense is a little bit further north, unfortunately. So we'll find out what happens. So I think we did a pretty decent job this turn, all things considered. I don't know why the hell they're transporting so much air freight in their back lines. It's weird use of their air transport miles. You would think they would drop them up in the front lines where they can actually use the supply, but I don't know. That's a little weird. It's also a little weird that you can even see that kind of stuff. It kind of bothers me. I don't know if that's a settings issue or what, but I don't even really want to be able to see the logistics stuff from the enemy. I don't know. Maybe in the future when I turn the turn, I won't watch this. We'll get to the end of a turn. I'll just turn it off camera. I won't even watch it, and we'll just click on the battles that we care about the next turn. I'm still trying to figure out the format of these end of turn episodes, because I do want a mix of, full gameplay and some of the shorter episodes where you can just get a taste of what the war is doing. And ultimately, I'm definitely hoping to pare down the length of these videos. I realize they're extremely long, and the main reason for that is I haven't edited them at all. They're completely unedited. So imagine it more like a live stream, which you're not supposed to watch the whole live stream. You're just supposed to tune in for a little bit. Now, what would probably be better is if I can go back through and annotate them with at least a little bit of detail. That'd be great. So this turn we lost more men. Lost 281,000 men, 4,485 guns, 2,227 armored fighting vehicles, and 87 planes. Wow. Big yikes. But we did hold out. So let's quickly read the events. Forced reorganization. In the early weeks of the war, it became quickly apparent that the Soviet command structure needed to change. And this is what I was talking about on turn one. your corps get reorganized into armies, and your armies get reorganized under fronts, and the corps level just slowly starts to go away. So a lot of the issues around the organization are because of losses too, because you lose entire units, entire corps, entire armies. So it annihilates the equivalent of an army group in American terms, or a front in Soviet terms. So as part of this major reorganization, the game is automatically going to convert Soviet rifle and mechanized corps into armies. And it's going to happen without notice. The game's not even going to say why it did this. It's just going to happen. At the same time, we are shipping everything from Ukraine that we can ship out to east of the Urals. We have to evacuate as much of the Soviet Union's critical supplies as we can. And that was one of the keys to winning the war. The problem is that moving that stuff and getting it back online and not starving to death were such massive undertakings and basically impossible to do in a single year. And so you had famine, you had a lack of equipment, and all of those issues were compounded by the completely unimpeded, really, advance of the Nazis. So one way we can help the boys in the rear is by trying to at least slow them down. And now we get a full picture of what we were facing here. It is an entire panzer army, which is kind of what we knew was there. But that's scary to see. So this is our need zone, highest needs. Everything has to defend against this, and everything else that's not defending against that should be focused up here in the north, in terms of planes, in terms of anti-tank divisions, everything. So one cool thing, I don't know if you can see this, but these are all new. These guys are all of the guys we called in. And so we'll be throwing these down onto the northern front. And now the reason we chose to send them onto the northern front instead of the southern front, southwestern, southern, whatever, is because we do have more forces down here in general. They're just badly positioned. So one thing we can do is to kind of give grounds where necessary, and to just expect higher losses because of the how our formations are weak. And I think that's the reality of our situation going forward here in this area. As you can see, this area is terrible terrain for us defensively. Like, there's nothing to protect until we get all the way to Kiev. Kiev is the first defensible grounds on this route. So if they choose to just go north to Kiev, they can. There's not much we can do about it. If they choose to go straight east, they can. And there's not much we can do about it. Because other than the rivers, there's nothing. So the rivers are going to be our best friends. We got to post up on the rivers and fight them for every inch of river. And ultimately, we're not going to have enough divisions to spread out along these rivers, so we have to focus them against the tanks and hope to God that we catch the tanks in a bad spot. Now, one of the things you see down in this group, in the Southwestern Air Command, only 191 bombers. So that's a bit concerning, and we've got a good amount of fighters, but the bombers are our main weakness. And we really need bombers and attack planes in general to go on an interdiction campaign against some of these stronger mechanized units. because we really need to slow them down. Not damage them, just slow them. Interdiction is the name of the game on this turn. And so just like last turn, we're going to focus on that. Western Air Command has the most planes because that's how we set the priority. And the Northern Air Command, or Northwestern Air Command rather, has a real shortage of fighters in particular. They have a good amount of bombers, but huge shortage of fighters. And I don't know if that's because of losses or what, but I would like to be able to try to sort that out, maybe bring some stuff in from the reserves. But that's kind of all I wanted to get through today. Just talk a little bit about the grand strategy, about how I feel about this game. And then next time we'll do the air war. And hopefully start making a difference in the places that we need to. It's really going to be the same focus as last turn in the air war. Interdict a few divisions. Even if you slow 1 out of 5 of these, because we know there's 5 here from our previous turn. Even if you slow a small percentage of them, that's better than slowing none of them. And so that's going to be our main goal. One of the other things I'm really interested in is the effectiveness of our supply network. Seems better this time. It seems like we got a little bit more supply. And so that's really good. Like these guys are 128% of supply. And I love that. I'm very happy that we got some supply in. Like even some of these units, they were very undersupplied, and now they have a little bit more in the way of supply. Now some of these guys had to travel a long way, so it's understandable that they're undersupplied, but it'll be good to get in some fresh units up here, and it'll be good to see where our supply needs stand. I'm somewhat surprised that we didn't face any threats in this area, and I'm glad. And I'm also glad that these guys got resupplied finally. Thank God. I think one thing that we might want to do is start bulking up supplies in Kiev. I'm just trying to think ahead here. Because we got some good frontline supplies, I think this turn. Just looking around, I think one of our other objectives this turn is to go try to get some supply into the second tier of defense, and just start setting up depots for that second tier of defense, wherever it ends up being. Now, interestingly, one of the places we kind of bailed out of here, this area here, didn't end up getting directly attacked. So that's really good. And it's hopefully going to hold out. I mean, that's not a particularly strong division. I don't think it can break through here. But we'll see. We definitely don't want to let them across the river if we don't have to. Not very many combat prep points. 27, that's not bad. But it's just not a very strong division in general. So, but some of these are now getting very strong, much more dug in. And that's really, really encouraging. And it looks like our supply issues got sorted out. I think it was just a matter of they had to march a really long way just to get to the front line. So now that we kind of know that our supply is better, I think this turn will be a little easier to sort out. And we know we've got a little bit of a defense here. The problem is none of these units are really prepared for battle. So they're just going to get blasted through by the tank divisions unless we can interdict them to a sufficient degree that they literally can't move. And I don't think we have the planes to do that. We'll find out, but that's my feeling. And the other question is, do we want to use something to scout with here? Like, is it worth it to commit a unit to scouting? Or should we just hold fast on where we think we can defend? I'm of the opinion right now that I think I'm just going to try to slap down a little bit of a resistance along, so they can't quite get to this rail line here. You know, they've got a lot of stuff that they need to clean up still on their end. So, yeah, we'll find out. As you can see, the pockets are pretty much closed, but we did manage to hold on to the rail line, so it's not going to be completely connected quite yet. Obviously, they're going to be bringing in a lot of crap through Riga, so it is what it is, but I wonder if we can get this guy out now. It's interesting. But we'll see what we can do. I'm looking forward to this turn. Just because there's a lot to do that might make a difference on the air turn. So because this is my first time doing the manual air, I'm really excited to see if I can do better than the AI, because I'll admit the AI doesn't do so hot. Now maybe I'm just mismanaging the AI, but it didn't do so hot for me. I will say that they didn't even do this. Like the interdiction I did here was way more effective than what the AI had done for me. Now, I don't know if there's anything you can do down here, but whatever there is, we're going to try to do it. All right, so that's all for today, and hopefully see you next time in another video.